everybody for tuning in. ItsMontez.com. ItsMontezDotCom. You have to spell that out. Duh. Today we have online NowYouSeeTV, and we're going to be speaking about the giants in Genesis 6. Hi, John. How are you? Thanks so much for being on.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. We talk a lot anyway, so this is going to be a good conversation. I know this is something that you're interested in. It's something I've done a lot of research on, so I'm definitely interested to talk about it, man.
Yeah, so we're opening up into the topics of Genesis 6 and the giants. Like, some people have said, maybe some of the people who play in the NBA or because they're bigger than everybody else, or maybe these could be bloodlines in between, or they could be somehow possibly connected to the giants in Genesis 6. What do you think about that?
Well, let me start by saying, like, in Genesis 6, in case people don't know what it says there, if you read in Genesis 6, it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and had children of them, and have wives which they choose and bore children of them. So, if you look into the Hebrew of that, I remember the first time I ever read the Bible with clear eyes. I sat there and I was reading the Bible. Okay, I started in Genesis. I got to this verse and I'm like, what in the world is this? And in the version I was reading, instead of giants, it said Nephilim. Okay, and the word Nephilim means fallen. So you look into that, we look into the whole idea behind that, and then it said the sons of God came to the daughters of men. So I'm thinking, what does this mean? What are the sons of God? Okay, so I look into the Hebrew of that. The Hebrew word for sons of God is B'nai Elohim. The only other time in the scripture that the B'nai Elohim is used is when it's referring to angels. In Job, it talks about the B'nai Elohim when they're standing before the throne of God, and all that stuff. So the word B'nai Elohim means sons of God. So these angels came down and they took wives and they had children. These children are really interesting because that's about the only time in the Bible you hear it mentioned about these children, except for you also see it mentioned in the book of Joshua. You see the Amalekites, you see the Enochites, you see all these different types or whatever you want to call them, tribes that are mentioned that are not in the table of nations. Okay, the table of nations is all the nations, is all the descendants from Noah passed. So you got all these different tribes that aren't mentioned in the table of nations that came from somewhere else. And before the flood, that was after the flood. Before the flood, you have these beings that are creating evil all over the world, so much so that God says, I'm going to destroy the earth. I'm going to bring a flood.
The water, right.
And if you look at the verse where it talks about Noah and his descendants, it says Noah was righteous in his generations. Okay? When most people read that, they don't think twice about it, but when you actually look at the Hebrew behind it, it means, some of the terms says perfect in his generations. Perfect, the perfect word is means it's good. Okay? And the generations, if you look at the Hebrew word for that, basically means bloodline. Okay, so him and his family were the only pure bloodline that was left. So this is why God destroys the earth and starts over. Okay.
So you're saying, like, I see. So everyone except for Noah and his family had already been tainted by the giants, the Nephilim.
Exactly, man. And I know after I started reading that and digging into it a little bit, seeing it throughout the scripture, I started to read. There was a guy named Enoch. And I read the book of Enoch, and I don't know if you've read that before, or your listeners, but I would suggest checking it out because the book of Enoch is mentioned in the scripture a couple times. It's actually quoted in the book of Jude, the book of Enoch is. And so Enoch goes into further description of these beings. He actually was the angels that messed up. They went to Mount Hermon. There's 200 of them.
Now we're getting into when they're going into the seven heavens then.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the book of Enoch. Now, according to my research, and this is based on a book called Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne, and Gary Wayne's a personal friend of mine. He wrote probably one of the most knowledge-filled books on the subject about the giants and how their plan to enslave mankind up to this day. So But as far as Enoch, there are two Enochs, and that's one thing a lot of people confuse. There's an Enoch on the evil side of Cain's lineage, and there's also an Enoch on Adam's side, the Seth line lineage.
Wow. You know, that's something that I didn't even know there was two different books of the book of Enoch. That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, there's more of a mystic version of Enoch, which would probably come from the Cain line of Enoch, and those were where a lot of the Freemasonry and secret societies and stuff, their knowledge comes from, is from the Cain lineage side. So they're going to have the 7 sacred sciences, which is all the different forms of education, like liberal arts and stuff, and that's where that information comes from the evil side of Enoch. If you read the Enoch version that I'm talking about, it basically goes right along with Scripture. It gives prophecies. It actually has more prophecies about Yeshua or Jesus than any other book in the Bible.
I've got a good question. How do you determine which book you're reading out of?
Well,
or the back?
What I'll do is I'll send a link to the one that is the good one, and I'll show you that way you can put it in your description on your video, and people can kind of see for themselves. But when you read them, you'll be able to tell. I mean, if you believe the Bible and you read the Bible, you'll be able to know which one is the evil Enoch, which as opposed to the good Enoch. And Enoch, he had vaults where he filled all these secret knowledge and all these knowledge that a lot of the secret societies carry on to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So when we're getting into the description and how the giants the Nephilims are coming about, then we're finding out more of Noah as being the only one that has the pure blood that none of his family has been bred into, and we take this on to the next step. How exactly then do we see these Nephilims today? Do you think that they might be? I mean, like, how do you imagine them? I mean, I haven't seen giants, you know, so
right. Well, obviously,
other than NBA players, you know.
Right. After the flood, there were giants. They were actually called Nephilim, and some of them were called Rephaim. And Goliath was considered a Nephilim. He was 10 foot tall or taller, depending on what kind of scale you go by. That Goliath, he was a Nephilim. So there were physical giants after that, and some would think that there probably are physical giants left that are way bigger than the guys that are playing basketball. Those guys are pretty tall, and whether or not they're from a Nephilim line of DNA or not, I don't know, but I do think that, it may be possible, but I tend to think more likely that they are just genetically taller. I mean, they come from a taller line of people, and because these giants, like some of these giants were huge. I mean, I'm talking like tall as their legs. It describes them. Joshua, they said that they were scared because they were like grasshoppers in their sight. So can you imagine a grasshopper compared to you? That's how big these people were. And there's proof. There's bones that people have found. 9 times out of 10, there's still some bones that you can actually see, and footprints that they've found. But most of the time when this happens, and I have archaeologist friends such as Aaron Judkins, and I did an interview with him not too long ago when I was in Texas. But a lot of these sites quickly get cleaned up by the government. The Smithsonian takes them and puts them away, never to be
for no one to see. Right, never to be concealed or revealed. Excuse me. So that's something there. How long have you been doing your study and research then?
I've been studying it for about 6 years personally. It became almost, as soon as I read it, it became almost an obsession in a way, and a healthy one, I would say, because it really taught me to see the world for what it is rather than, because the world is spiritual. It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against supernatural things. I mean, it's more detailed what the verse says, but we wrestle against spiritual powers, wickedness in high places. And so I really got into it and I've been into it for about 6 years. If you look at my channel on NowYouSeeTV, you'll see I have numerous interviews with people such as L.A. Marzulli, Gary Wayne, Rob Skiba, people that are pioneers in this whole study. And so on top of my studies, I've also interviewed people to actually just further my education in the whole thing, because some of these guys have really dug deep into this subject. I mean, L.A. Marzulli has found the elongated skulls, and there's proof that those are not regular human skulls, which
See, there's a lot of times, some of the non-believers or some of the people that believe in evolution and things like this here, they might say that they're apes. What are the reasons for why they say that there's no way possible it could be? Like, what's the...
You got to look at the viewpoint of people, okay? So most people's viewpoint is they believe, most people that do not believe in the scripture believe in evolution. Okay, so in order for this to, evolution to be true, they have to discount the supernatural ideas of the scripture. They have to discount basically every bit of mythology that's ever existed in the world, because you find accounts of these giants in the same exact stories of floods and super tall creatures and gods coming down and having affairs with women and creating demigods, such as the Zeus and Hercules. Hercules would be a son of Zeus. You have these in every culture that has ever been around. You got it in Rome. You've got it in the Syrians, Egypt. You've got all these different stories that are exactly the same as, I would say exactly the same, but told from a different viewpoint. Told from the enemy's viewpoint versus the biblical viewpoint. But these things are very in depth in their society. They believe these things. I mean, to the point that they sacrificed their children to these beings. That's how much they believed it. So it's not just a biblical idea. This is a idea that for every ancient civilization
all around the world, like this isn't just one person, one community thought of this. This is everyone that had some type of I guess you'd say foot in it,
Yeah, everybody, all civilizations had that as their history, and most people will discredit like the Neanderthals, for instance. Okay, those skulls are definitely human. I mean, you look at them, there's no ape-like features about them. The DNA that they could find is primarily human. What I tend to believe about the Neanderthals is they were probably the original humans. They were probably in the Bible times, in the original times, people lived to be 900 years old. Okay,
right,
and so the brows are obviously bigger. And one of the things about the brow is the brow in a human, you see older people, their brows are always bigger, because the older you get, the bigger your brow gets. I mean, that's how it works. So imagine somebody that's 900 years old. And obviously, something that I've talked to you about before is DNA. Okay, the original man's DNA is going to be much stronger and have much more code in it than the DNA we see today, because DNA is information, and the more you're bred, the more things, it's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. DNA becomes gradually weaker, and we see this in dogs, with the original dogs being wolves. In order to get a new bloodline and to reintroduce better DNA into a dog, you have to go back to the original copy and breed it into that one way, because you see a lot of dogs that are purebred. Eventually, those dogs start getting weaker and weaker, and eventually they die sooner, and there's problems with it because their DNA has been so stretched out over the years. And it's the same with humans. I mean, obviously humans don't have the variations that dogs have. I mean, because you can see like a little pug, like I have a little black pug, and then you look at a Saint Bernard. Oddly enough, both of those dogs come from the exact same DNA. Their DNA may not be the same now, but it was originally from the original dog, which would be the wolf.
Well, that's a lot of information you're crushing down. I wanted to know, where exactly would you think most of the studies are put up? I know you said they're in ancient archives and stuff like that. I know that there's some civilization people we can't, as a peon, we can't really see the information that we would like to see. But whereabouts do you think that some of this information could be found? I mean,
as far as the stories of the giants and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, well, you got Homer's Iliad, you've got the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a Nephilim. It's a story about him and how he was evil, and all these. The stories are magnified throughout, and obviously the religions behind Odinism, Odin being the main god, and his son Thor, and Loki, and all these different demigods. They're half god, half man, and obviously Zeus and Hercules and all the different demigods that were produced from Zeus. those are the stories that we're talking about here. And you know, if you look at Egyptian hieroglyphs and look at Egyptian art and stuff, you see these giant reptilian-looking beings that are running these societies of small humans. You can see how big they are in comparison to these other people. I mean, and you know, you look at the Bible, reptilian is a huge part. That's where the serpent comes from, where the serpent that, you know, caused Adam and Eve to sin.
Right.
You know, their children would look serpentine as well, because, and I believe they were seraphim angels, because if you look at the word seraphim in Hebrew, it means fiery serpent. So I believe these were serpent-like creatures. You see serpent symbolism in almost every civilization. China has a strong descendant from the red dragons, what they call it, red dragon bloodline. They're the people that are in charge. Most of the dragon bloodlines that are European, you know, I guess a lot of people would call them Illuminati, but Illuminati, they use it as a blanket term nowadays. Illuminati is actually just an organization within organizations. So to say Illuminati is like a blanket term for every secret organization is actually false. But most of these people, their beliefs are they descend from these beings. That's what they believe. Okay, so you look at almost every world ruler, kingship, and stuff like that. Most of these rulers are going to claim descendants from these what they call gods.
This royal bloodline, then.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been NowYouSeeTV, and it's been such a pleasure getting some more information about the giants in Genesis 6, the Nephilim. It's just so much information to crush in all at one time. I would like to bring you on the show again, and get further into this conversation. Thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, no problem, man. We can definitely discuss it in more detail at any time. So let me know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, itsmontez.com. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks so much.